Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week 12 of the CWS, the 15-week CWS preparation course. Today, in case you hadn't guessed it, is October 31st, Halloween, and we're going to be talking about equipment installation and doing some water treatment questions and answers. So let's get started. I always like to say thank you. I start every presentation off with a thank you, and I hope that you know that I'm sincere with them. It is my honor to be able to serve you in this way, and it's my goal to make sure that the information I give to you is at least as valuable as the time that you're giving to me. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. So let's start it. Okay, what we're going to talk about today are installation procedures. So where we're going to put equipment, pressure drop considerations, a little bit of that, and then we're going to talk about some common questions and answers about water conditioning. There are going to be some points in this lesson, in this webinar, that you're going to want to pay attention to or take note of. You may see some of the stuff in this lesson again in other areas. All right, so 3 things to keep in mind when it comes to installers. First off, the installers should be fully trained, and they really should understand what they're doing. They should be fully trained. They should be professional. Remember that, you know, when it comes to people going into the company, representing your company, it's not just the equipment that they're buying. They're buying the professionalism and the knowledge. They're buying they're buying the confidence and the assurity that it's done properly, that it's done to code, that it's done exactly the way that it really should be done in order to function properly. So the installer should be fully trained. We recommend certification. And coincidentally, we offer a 10-week WQA certification webinar series as well, which so far we have 100% pass rate on for people that have taken our course and then taken the exam. So just throw that in there really quick. But installers should be fully trained, not only with the manufacturer, but also with local codes, plumbing codes, all that good stuff. State and local codes should be abided by. So in the order that they should go, you should follow the manufacturer's instructions, installation instructions first, but state and local codes take precedent over the manufacturer's instructions. So the manufacturer's instructions should be followed when they do not conflict with the state and local codes. And like I said, the state and local codes take precedence over that stuff. All right, so just a basic installation here, and let me turn on my little drawy thingamajigger pen thing. Let's see here. Where is that? All right, so we're going to pretend that we're water, and this is just a basic, the way water comes in. Now, this is one of those things that gets a little difficult for some people to really get in terms of plumbing. I think some people, they have a hard time following the plumbing lines and calculating where they're going and figuring it all out. But as professionals in the home, we really should be able to do a thorough plumbing assessment. It's going to, when we go in, especially if you're in sales, to be able to go in and recognize when outside lines are not going to be soft or when they are going to be soft. A lot of older homes will install a cold water faucet on the, it's not only older ones, but sometimes they'll make a cold water faucet hard in the kitchen. So to be able to recognize that and to recognize whether or not you have soft water running to the entire home, to be able to figure out where you would be able to put a reverse osmosis in. So it is important to be able to take note of the plumbing and follow it along. And basically, you start where the water comes in, either at the meter or the pressure tank. And the way I always did it is I just pretended that I was inside that water line, okay, inside the pipe, and like it was a road system, and I had choices as I came up through them. So we're going to come from the water meter and from the tank, and we're going to go up here, and here's our first choice, our elbow, our turn. Now we have a choice of either going, we can either go outside, this is to outside sprinklers, or we can continue on towards the house, okay? Obviously, because there's nothing else on this water line here, if we go outside, then that's going to be hard water because there's no treatment on that. But look, we're going to head on this way. Now, if there was no equipment in the home, if there was no water softener anywhere around, then this valve right here would not be necessary. Okay, it would not be necessary. Also, you would not need this or this, and that's because the water would just simply go straight on through into the house. Okay, but since we do have, let's see here, let's get rid of this. Boom, boom, boom. You like how when I erase I say boom? It adds something to it, don't you think? So, all right. So since we do have a water softener, what we have to do is we have to put this valve. This is going to be part of your three-way bypass valve. All right. So since we're water, we're inside that pipe. We're going to come up. Now the water's just going along. Da 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 da. Bang! Bangs its head right on this valve because this valve is off. Okay. This valve is off. And so it bangs its head. Oh, I can't go that way. So it has to. It's forced to kind of go down this way. Now this valve is open. If this valve right here is off, then that water is, you have no water to the house. Okay, if both of these valves are off, but we're assuming this valve. See, water follows the path of least resistance too. So if this valve right here is open, and this valve right here is open, most of the water is going to choose to go straight on through. It's not going to want to go through that water softener because there's a lot more stuff to go through it. Okay, so in order to have the softener off, or I'm sorry, the softener on, then the water's got to come bang its head up against this, and it's going to be forced to go down through here, and it goes down through this water softener, leaving all its calcium. It goes down through there, and again, we all know from previous classes that water always says "we" when it goes through some sort of a filter or travels that way. It's like an amusement park for them. It enjoys it. So then it goes out. Now, obviously, sometimes this water softener is inside the salt tank. Okay, but usually you have a separate salt tank here. So the water goes out, and now this valve is also going to be open because if this valve, even if this one is open and this one is closed, this top one is closed, and this valve is closed, you still don't have water into the house. So these two side valves have to be open, and this one up here has to be closed in order for the water softener to function. So the water goes on into the house. Now, a couple things to take note about all this bypass valve stuff. Okay, first off, you'll notice this is a ground strap to maintain continuity for the total dissolved solids to keep the corrosion down. A lot of times you will have built into the softener, you'll actually have some kind of a union or something that allows that continuity to occur right on the valve. But if not, you're putting dissimilar metals in when you put that softener in, because a lot of times they have brass valves, brass inlets or outlets. Well, that's dissimilar metals, copper to brass or galvanized brass. You're going to have some corrosion there. So putting that ground strap on there allows the continuity. Now, another thing to take notice of is a lot of times, this is not uncommon, probably not your customers, but a lot of people's customers will sometimes go down and start messing with valves, maybe when they want to change a filter and they don't understand how this goes. So they will turn all the valves on, thinking they all need to be on, and so this valve will be on, and so will these, and then they call you and complain that their softener is not working, and that's because they simply have this valve on and the water is running straight into the house instead of going through the softener. Obviously, they're going to get hard water there. Ethically, it's not a good idea to jump straight to selling them a new water softener and telling, oh, that thing that's only 2 years old from that competitor is not working at all. It's proof right here. Turn the valve on and try it, and be honest with them. It will end up, you will reap way more in the future for your honesty than you do the one-time quick sale. That's not to say that you can't talk to them about the benefits of upgrading and putting in a better piece of equipment, but be honest about it and take the opportunity to educate them. All right, so a couple other things to take notice that you will see here. Maintain an air gap of at least the greater of 1 inch or 2 times the diameter of the drain line. Placed above the flood rim level, the receptacle that the drain line discharges into. You're going to see that again too. Okay, you will see that again. So the water. So anyway, the water follows on through here, and now you notice here you have another choice. It's going to split off. And this is going to go through the cold water lines, and then it's going to be forced down through the water heater. Of course, what does the water say? And this, you will probably see this on the what does water say when it goes down through any kind of a filter? And the answer, somebody type it in there. Somebody type it in. What does water say? What words does it use? Just in case you see this on a quiz somewhere. Help me out here. Whee! Thank you, Jen. And that probably won't be on the test, but that's right. Whee! All right, it is fun to say. Just to, I do that sometimes even when I'm not teaching webinars. I just sit around and pretend I'm water going through the water lines and say, whee! Which is actually not true. I don't do that at all. But because it would be a little creepy. But no, Pete, you got it wrong. Right. You guys are close. It's not you're right. It's one consonant and one vowel, but you may need to study a little bit more. All right. Okay. So very important to do a proper plumbing assessment. And by the way, if you're looking for a good plumbing assessment form, Moti-Vitality.com has one for members that you can download and modify at your will. You can use it as much as you want. But when you're doing a plumbing assessment, this is important. It's part of the diagnosis. You got to know what's going on before you recommend equipment. But check the drain, see where it's going to drain. I had one of the first customers I ever went to when I first went into sales 15 years ago. Went out to a house and they had what was called a Michigan basement, but that could be because it was in Michigan. So I suspect in somewhere else they call them a different name. But it was one of those basements that had a dirt floor, and they weren't the straight concrete walls. It was just it was a dirt floor, and there was no sump pump anywhere. They had a really old farmhouse. They had cast iron septic lines, and I was so excited to have sold this. This was one of the first sales I made. I was so excited, and I went back and turned in the paperwork and everything, and the installer called me a couple days later, was out at the house and says, okay, there's nowhere to drain this. Where are we going to put it? Nowhere to drain it. I'm like, oh, no sump pump. He wasn't about to break into the cast iron lines because that would have been to drain it into the septic because he was worried that he wouldn't be able to get a proper seal. And so I had two options, either lose the sale or go out there on a Saturday morning and with a shovel and dig a dry well for the customer and install a dry well for them, because they could have spent $500 or $600 or more to have a professional excavator come out and dig a dry well hole for them and put all that stuff in there. But dry wells are really easy to do. It just took me, like I said, a Saturday morning to get out there and do it myself, and I saved the sale. Which I will tell you how to dig a dry well here in a few minutes. But anyway, check to make sure there's a drain. You got to do that ahead of time. If your softener uses electricity, make sure that there's a plug close by. You really should not use extension cords in these things. They really should have a dedicated plug next to it. Pressure is very important. Remember, when it comes to a filter, the number one cause of filter failure is going to be inadequate water pressure because of backwashing. And also condensation is a big deal. You know, you get a well, especially in the humid climates, the water comes out and it can drip like crazy. And this becomes really important if you're installing in a mobile home or somewhere where there's carpet around. You can have a ton of water drip. And so sweat jackets will definitely help. Also drip pans will help keep track of that. I have literally seen a water softener fall through a mobile home floor because of the condensation, the water on it. You know, it forms a puddle, and it's a lot of times it's particle board in the floors, and it literally, the softener will just fall right through it. So, so that's check all that stuff. Make sure that you have all this stuff done in your plumbing assessment. All right, some things to consider. Whether you want the hot and the cold water, you know, whether both the hot and the cold is going to be softened. I had my ex-father-in-law gave me these really old Time Life books, home improvement things. And they came out like in the 70s, and I was reading through some of the plumbing codes, and they recommended, even in that book way back then, that you only soften hot water lines, that you don't soften the cold water lines. And I think it's interesting that you still see, especially older plumbers, you see that a lot where they will still recommend that. Now, that was before, you know, people were concerned about sodium in the water from a water softener. They really don't understand how softeners work. And so they were concerned about sodium in the water. They also, I mean, it's true, obviously we've talked about this when we talked about water hardness, that hot water does exacerbate scale buildup. But you do get scale buildup, especially in iron staining, both in the hot and the cold water. So having a water softener is definitely, it's valuable to have it in both the hot and the cold. So take a look at that though, check it, because sometimes, I mean, you know, that's where the plumbing assessment comes in, right? You go out and you do the plumbing assessment. I mean, you put in a softener assuming that it's going to soften the house, and you go to test the water, and voila, there it's all, you know, it's still hard in the cold water lines. If you run into that at the kitchen, go to the bathroom and check, because sometimes it's only the cold water at the kitchen that's plumbed hard, and a lot of times it's pretty easy just to tap into a soft water line there to make the kitchen soft. But that's where that plumbing assessment comes in. Check that hot and cold. Size and capacity, so that's important. You know, nowadays especially, you've got some of these showers that have multiple shower heads, and they require sometimes 18, 20 gallons a minute in order to run these things. So check to make sure that you've got big enough size to handle the flow rates and capacity. A lot of times it's important to make sure that you're looking at your service flow rates, not your valve flow rates. A lot of the manufacturers out there will give you flow rate capabilities through the valve, but they don't take into consideration the flow rates through the resin bed. So you got to make sure that you're looking at service flow rates, not valve flow rates. Type of plumbing is important. It's a good rule of thumb to install the softener using the same type of plumbing that is in the house. So if it's predominantly copper running through the house, install the softener with copper. If it's PEX, install it with PEX. You know, so stay with the type of plumbing, or make note of the type of plumbing. And the outside lines, you know, if somebody has outside lines, again, this comes with the experience of the plumber sometimes. I know in my experience, when there was a new house or new construction being built and you had a plumber that mostly did city water, they don't really think sometimes about putting separate, you know, making the outside line separate. And so what ends up happening if you've not done a proper plumbing assessment is you install the water softener. Now, next thing you know, the customer is calling you because they're blowing through salt like crazy, assuming it's a demand or a metered system. They're blowing through a ton of salt. They're using it, going through it like crazy, and that's because the plumber didn't even think to bypass the outside lines, and the water treatment sales professional, installer, and sales didn't recognize that the outside lines were going to be running through the softener, and they were out there watering their grass because they planted new grass, and now they're blowing through a ton of salt. Some people like one outside line soft for washing cars, or you know, doing stuff real close, especially if they have iron in the water. That's the way my house is. I've got one outside line in soft, and I use it for my pressure washer and washing my cars and my motorcycle and stuff like that. I use it for so that I don't want spotting all over everything. So outside lines are also important. Codes take precedence. Remember that. Always remember the codes take precedence. Drains should not connect directly to the waste system. That is important. So laundry tray might be a good place to put a drain in. A floor drain, a trap. The air gap has to be at least 2 times the drain diameter. That's important. So if you've got a 3/4 inch drain line, then you need to have an 1.5 inch drain line diameter. No rinsing of brine through the water supply lines. That's important as well. And again, hey, look, codes take precedence, always. All right, so a dry well. In case you wanted to know how to dig a dry well, hey, we're here, I'm going to teach you, okay? So, and I actually have experience in doing this because, like I said earlier, I had a customer that I ended up having to do this with. Okay, so make sure I get my little pin guy here. Okay, so what you do, now this is the house, and basically what you've got here is, let's see, the basement. We're going to come on down. We're going to assume that this picture here, I'll show you how I did it, okay? If this is this is the basement, and we put the softener in right here. All right, that's a great looking softener, isn't it? Isn't that awesome? Okay, so this is the ground surface. Now, a lot of the homes that have a basement, now this one shows them going straight through the concrete wall and down underneath the ground. So they've dug a trench here and just gone through a wall and done it all under. I did not do that, actually. What happens if you have a check valve instead of an air check? We have a question here. What happens if you have a check valve instead of an air check? You have to have, I don't believe if you're in the drain line, if you're plugging into, for the drain, a check valve, most check valves are not 100%. So you have to have an air gap in most situations. A check valve would still allow, it still has the possibility of allowing some backfeed into the household line. So I don't believe a check valve on a drain line in most places is going to be acceptable code. Most of the check valves, if they get debris or something like that stuck in them, you don't get 100% seal sometimes. So I believe, Pete, that you have to have an air gap always when you're installing a drain line installing it into the, especially if you have any possibility of backflow in through the water system. So you'd have to check your local codes and see specifically whether or not that would work, but having gone through the certified installer course and looking at it, I believe an air gap is required on that for the drain. Okay. All right. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so up here, this right here is cinder block a lot of times, or poured concrete. This is a lot of times wood. Okay, so you have actually the wood usually starts above the dirt. So I guess it'd be more up here. Okay, but what we did to dig the dry well is we ran a pipe up through here and out. We drilled a hole through the wood above the ground surface and brought it down and tied it into here. Now this is just 2-inch PVC usually. Okay, and then we dug a trench all the way out away from the house here. Okay, so I think I went 20 feet away from the house, so you'd have to check your local codes and see what is appropriate for that. But it is important that this trench, where the pipe is going to be laid, is down below the frost line. You want that to be down below the frost line. So ours was had to be at least 18 inches deep, this trench. So we dug this trench and ran the PVC over here. Now what I did, now this one runs into the side. what I did is I dug a hole. I went down, went over to the shop and grabbed a brine tank out of the trash can. We're taking softeners out of people's houses all the time. I grabbed a brine tank, an old brine tank out of the dumpster, and I used that. And what I did, just like this shows this 50-gallon barrel, I put drill holes, you know, that was my drill impression. It was pretty good, wasn't it? So drill holes all the way through this thing, now what I did on mine is I ran it into the top. So the pipe came down like this. It came down into the top. So I drilled a hole and actually brought the pipe down here. You could run it into the side, I guess, like this one is shown. But so I dug a hole deep enough to set that brine tank upside down, so the bottom became the top. So I put the open part down on the bottom. So I dig a hole here, and you get pea gravel. Now, what I did is I just went down to the local school playground at 2 o'clock in the morning and backed my trailer up and just took a whole bunch of pea gravel from the playground. So, you know, it's cheaper that way. And there was a bunch more. They hardly even noticed that it was gone, I think. And but if you would want to be legal, and probably the Water Quality Association and Moti-Vitality would recommend not stealing it from little kids, you get some pea gravel and you drop that down into this hole, into the bottom of the hole, and then you run this pipe down through this, and this is all empty. Okay, this whole area is empty, and you've got holes. So you drop that brine tank, or that upside-down brine tank in there, and then you put pea gravel around the sides of it as well. You fill the hole with pea gravel, and then you cover it up. You just dig the hole. You fill it all in, and you cover it all up. And now that drain line comes down through there, and the water drains into there, and it's all down underneath the vegetation level, so it's not going to kill anything. The salt water is not going to kill anything. It just goes back into the ground underneath the vegetation level there. So, yeah, I didn't use the pea gravel at my house, but I do have a map of all the playgrounds around the area, which sounds really creepy, actually. I should stop there. I have a map of all the playgrounds where the little kids are. That's not true. I'm just gonna stop right there. Actually, might be a line there. There might be a line there. Anyway, all right. So anyway, septic systems. So first off, I can tell you there is an awesome study that just came out. That just introduced it last year at the, or actually it was this year, at the National WQA Convention. They released the official final study. The Water Quality Research Foundation did a study along with the septic system industry that now shows that septic systems, water softeners draining in the septic systems when they are set up normally and not only don't hurt a septic system, but in a lot of cases actually help a septic system. You can get this study from the Water Quality Association. I've got a link to it on the website because ever since I've been in the business for 15 years, this was an issue. It was a big controversy over whether water softener, the septic system people would always said that a water softener will ruin the septic system, but they did a very detailed study. I strongly recommend you read it. If you have septic systems in your area, it's an awesome study, and you can actually hand that to customers and give that out and use it as needed. Our industry really needed that a long time. And by the way, that's one of the reasons we should really be supporting organizations like the Water Quality Association, because this is the type of study that they sanction and have and can provide for our industry. So your support, this is one of the things that your support of Water Quality Association did for us, is produce this septic system study, which is really valuable. So take a look. I do have, like I said, I do have that posted on the website, or you can get it directly from Water Quality Association. But basically the way a septic system works is it takes all the stuff, all the sewage, and it goes down through, and basically you've got bacteria. So you've got this concrete block here, and all the waste goes in there, and then this is a leach field. That stuff leaches into it, and when you'll notice this, it looks like somebody's digging a swimming pool. It's this huge area out in the front of the yard, and you don't want to drive anywhere near that if it's really muddy and there's a hill nearby, because driving the car into this leach field and having to get it towed out is not a very good way of generating business. Not that I did it, but the truth is I was out canvassing one day in a little Oldsmobile Alero, and I almost did it. And it was really bad. We had to get a bunch of wood and put it over the corner of the thing so that literally the car did not slide down into their field. That's what the septic system looks like under the ground. When you see the trucks, the big poop trucks come through, this is they dig up and they suck this out, clean this septic tank out. All right, new installations. New installations should always be disinfected. You will probably see that again somewhere. You should always disinfect a new installation. You can use household bleach or pellets. You use 1.2 fluid ounce per cubic foot of resin for household bleach. Downflow units have to be put in the backwash in order to disinfect them. Upflow, you can add it straight to the brine tank. This is just a personal opinion of mine. My opinion is that you should always drain the water heater. I really, really, really believe you should drain the water heater. Somebody spends a couple $1,000s on a water softener. They want the benefits of that water softener. They want to use it right away. Now, I've heard the arguments that companies don't like to drain that softener or that water heater because sometimes the drain valve can leak or cause all kinds of problems. They don't want to have to replace a new replace the water heater. But you should do that. I at least explain to the customer, at least educate them, at least have them do it, hook a hose up to it, because they want to start enjoying the benefits of that softened water right away. You know, that the water heater is a history. It's going to take 2 or 3 days to get it out of there, to get the water out of there, and it's nasty. If you ever opened up the valve in the bottom of the water heater, all the stuff that's settled down to the bottom of that thing, get that out of there. Let them have clean water to start with. So I recommend draining the water heater. Obviously follow the instructions of your company, but I recommend draining the water heater, at least explaining to the customer how to do it. All right, pressure drop. There are lots of different things that can cause pressure drop. You got friction can cause pressure drop. Every foot of pipe or change in direction will cause you will have some pressure drop in all instances. Commonly measured in pounds per square inch or PSI, also in inches of mercury though, or feet of water. If you see a question on pressure drop anywhere on an exam sometime in the future, you will actually, it will be very, very easy. What they will tell you is that you'll have, if you have 100 foot of pipe and 3 elbows and a globe valve and 3 couplings, what is the pressure drop going to be? So all you'll have to do is add. Okay, just, you know, you have a calculator, but you won't even need it. All you'll have to do is add, and you'll come up with the answer on what the pressure drops is. They would give you a chart of anything that you need. You do not have to memorize these numbers. All right, some common questions, and some of these are going to be, you know, I mean, they're common questions that you get with customers. Okay, some of them are common sense. Some of them are frustrating. It's like being in the industry long enough that you know, you just want to scream sometimes when people ask the question. Okay, you're not allowed to say no. You know, no, you idiot. It does not do that. You know, that kind of stuff. So, but here we go. Okay, so remove the good minerals like iron and calcium? Well, no. Softened water does remove iron and calcium, but it's not the good minerals, okay? Good minerals like iron and calcium, I mean, a water softener takes out, okay, iron, and people ask this all the time. They go, well, I thought that calcium was good for you. I thought you're supposed to have calcium. And well, yes, you are supposed to have calcium, but the calcium that's in the water, the dissolved rock that's in the water, is not the same kind of calcium that you get in milk or your foods or anything like that, okay? You do not get your nutrition from water. Water is used to lubricate your bones and muscles and to keep your body hydrated. It doesn't, you don't get your nutrition from the water. So, you know, just be nice to the customers when they ask this, but explain to them the difference between organic and inorganic minerals. So calcium is, you know, that's in milk or your foods is organic, and yes, it's good for you. The calcium that's in the water, that's from the hardness, is dissolved rock, and it's not going to hurt you any, but it's not going to give you any nutritional value either. Same thing with iron. If you would like to go chew on nails, that's fine, but you're not going to get any nutritional value from that. That's different than the iron that's in asparagus and meat and stuff like that. So no, softened water doesn't remove the good minerals like iron and calcium. Can softened water be used for tropical fish? Yeah, it can be, but reverse osmosis or distilled is better. Okay, does soft water help a humidifier? Yes, it will, because sodium is softer than calcium, but you will still get a pretty big sodium buildup. You're going to have this white, flaky stuff on your humidifier filter, even with softened water, because the sodium buildup. I mean, it will definitely be a white, powdery stuff, as opposed to a crusty, rocky humidifier filter, or, you know, crusty stuff on the humidifier filter. So if you are able to, you can run a reverse osmosis system to the humidifier. But remember that, I mean, humidifiers use a ton of water, especially during the wintertime, you know, in a dry climate. They use a ton of water, but also some water softeners may not meter it because it's going to be slow. It's almost, you know, pulls about as much as a leaky toilet. So if you are running that to a humidifier, then keep in mind that you may be exhausting the capacity of your water softener and not metering it. So keep that in mind. Can a softener remove some radioactive contaminants? Yes, and if you go back and review the ion exchange section that we talked about, you'll see that, well, barium, for example, is a radioactive contaminant, and most water softeners will remove barium. It has the same chemical properties as calcium and magnesium. Should soft water be used for houseplants or watering a lawn? Well, inside plants, no. You should definitely use reverse osmosis or distilled water or even hard water inside the plants. Now, if you talk to a flower shop, a lot of times flower shops will use reverse osmosis or distilled water for their plants, and that's because, I mean, the plant has to filter out all the stuff that's not good for it before it gets to the stuff that is good for it. So what's recommended is start with a high quality pure water and then re-add back specifically the fertilizers that plant needs to flourish and grow. Now, the big question here is sodium. So should you water the grass with soft water? Sodium outside mostly is going to be fine, because you usually have enough rainwater to kind of dilute the sodium and wash it away. So it'll probably be okay outside for the plants and the grass and all that stuff. Inside, though, you don't really have that. All that sodium is trapped right inside the soil, and it's not going to do well for your plants and your flowers and stuff. So no, you should really use a better quality water inside for the inside plants, the potted plants. Also, you could use potassium chloride. A lot more expensive, but it would work as well because the potassium is not going to hurt stuff. Does soft water make ice cubes more clear? Absolutely not. You're going to get, because remember, it's ion exchange, not ion removal. So the TDS is the same or higher with softened water as it is with hard water. You're just exchanging the calcium and iron for sodium. If you want clear ice cubes, you need reverse osmosis or distilled water or demineralized water. Do water softeners hurt a septic system? We already talked about that, and we've got the study to prove it now. No, they do not. If they're, as long as, I mean, if you're super saturated in salt, you know, the over-salting, over-brining, then yes, that will, putting a ton of brine in there. But set up the way normal softeners should be set up on efficiency ratings, no. And in some cases, it even helps. Is sodium in soft water bad for you? That's a common question. I get that from customers a lot. And what I would say is, number one, I'm not a doctor. So I would consult a doctor on that before I would. But you can also, the people who ask this question are usually the ones sitting there eating the beef jerky in between the cigarettes and drinking the pop or soda or wherever you are in the country, whatever you call it, the carbonated beverage, or a can of tomato soup, or actually any canned goods mostly. Tons of sodium in there. There is a chart that I put on the website on our info page that you can download that shows the equivalent sodium amounts in there. For the hardness levels and how much sodium per 8 ounce of water you have, so take a look at that chart. You can use that on a digital presentation if you want. What I usually tell people is, if you're concerned with it, reverse osmosis systems will take out the sodium. It takes out. It's going to give you a good place to start. So if you're concerned with the sodium, reverse osmosis is so inexpensive now that, I mean, it's just, there's no reason to, not even the expensive reverse osmosis systems are less expensive than using potassium chloride or buying bottled water. So there's just no reason why this should even be an issue. If somebody's putting in a whole water treatment plant, I mean a total water treatment system in their home, that means the water that both goes on you and the water that goes in you, then this shouldn't even be an issue. How should soft water affect the dishwasher? Well, just read any dishwasher owner's manual, any of them. They usually have at least 1 or 2 pages dedicated to why you should have soft water. And I just did a video. Check it out on our Facebook page or on Water Quality Products. I posted it yesterday. I just actually did a video for Water Quality Products magazine about this very topic, and you can take a look at it. But read any dishwasher's owner's manual. Just go online, Google dishwasher owner's manual, and pick any of them, and you will see at least 1 or 2 pages completely dedicated to the benefits of soft water in that dishwasher. The little lines inside the cups on the dishwasher, those lines are there, and they directly correlate with the amount of hardness in the water. And the owner's manual will tell that, will say that. Should soft water be used in a steam iron? Again, it's not, you should use distilled or RO water, because the soft water doesn't take out the total dissolved solids. You still have TDS in there. What are those pink stains in the toilet, in the bathroom, even on city water? That's bacteria. It's airborne bacteria, and it will cause, you find that in high moisture, high bacteria areas, so clean the bathroom more. And that is our week 12. So next week we're going to be doing some troubleshooting, kind of going through as kind of a pre-review. And so if anybody have any questions? What did the pink stains have to do with softened or unsoftened water? Well, that you can have them with either softened or, let's say a lot of times softened water is, people will have that going through a water softener and they'll still get pink stains, even on city water where they don't have any iron. And so pink stains are pretty common, and that's just an airborne bacteria. So it's whether it's softened or unsoftened. I think think where that question comes from is the fact that some people are getting those pink stains even, right, there is no correlation. That's correct. There is no correlation. It could be either soft or not soft water. That's right. Yep. All right, any other questions? Okay, you guys, you can start putting on your costumes now, and everybody have a very safe holiday and a great weekend, and we will talk to you. And don't forget, Jen's birthday is next Tuesday, so you put whatever you're sending her in the mail today, so that she gets it in time. So, all right. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.